Good morning and welcome everyone to today's BGL and Xero Practice Manager integration webinar. My name is Brad Wilkinson and I'll be your host today. I also have with me from Xero, Emily Paterson, who's Partnerships Manager at Xero. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Brad. Your slides aren't on, by the way, as well. I'll just let you know.
So what was that?
We can't see your slides at the moment.
Oh, right. Okay. I'll just share that now. Thanks.
That's right. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
There we go. So, and we also have with us from Xero, Sadia Tippy. So, hi, Sadia. How are you going? I think she's connected. Maybe logging back in. Oh, she's dropped off. Well, Sadia will, I think, join with us in a minute. So basically today's session, we're looking at covering, going through, I guess, XPM and BGL and how that, our new integration. So that's why we've invited along Emily and Sadia to show us a bit of XPM. Oh, Sadia's back. Hi, Sadia.
Hey guys, sorry.
No worries. Cool. So yeah, so exciting webinar today. As I said, we have two guests or co-hosts from Xero to show us XPM and their side of things. And then also towards the end, I'll show, I guess, our side of things and how the new integration works. So what I'll just do, just go through a bit of housekeeping before we get into it. So everyone's aware, the webinar is being recorded. All attendees will receive an email at the end with the recording. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to use the Q&A. We have a team of 3 people helping us answer those questions as we go. So we'll just run the webinar as we go, and we'll have a team in the background just answering questions. And towards the end, once we finish the main material, I'll help answer questions as well if there's any remaining. So here we have Utkarsh, May, and Vince helping us out. So thanks, guys. Okay, so in terms of just a really brief, very high-level overview of what today's webinar will look like. So as I said, we have our 2 guests from Xero to do a bit of a deep dive into XPM. Then they'll hand back to me and I'll do a demo of the XPM BGL integration. So the new integration, how we set it up, how it looks, all the ins and outs. And then if there's any questions, we'll help answer them at the end. So yeah. So I might now hand over to Emily.
Perfect. Thanks, Brad. Yeah, hi, everyone. My name's Emily Paterson. I'm the Partnerships Manager here at Xero. I look after the practice app ecosystem, very lucky. I also have been a chartered accountant before, and I was a partner consultant at Xero as well. So I implemented our Xero practice tools for a couple of years. So yeah, practice tools and practice apps are my life, and I love it. So I'm really excited to be here today to show the new integration with BGL and XPM. It's really, I've seen it before. It's very cool. So I'm excited for you to see that at the end. BGL is a super important partner to us. So excited to be able to show you it. So we're going to run you through a quick 10-15 minute demo of XPM. I did want to quickly do a poll just to see what you're using currently, whether you're using XPM and BGL, just BGL or just XPM. As we thought, a majority of people are using both XPM and BGL. So Sadia will go through a few tips and tricks as well along the way about XPM and anything new coming out. But for those, there are a few that are just using BGL and a few that are just using XPM. So we'll just do a quick high-level overview so you've got the context of what XPM does and what it looks like. So thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to quickly hand over to Sadia, who's a superstar, and I'll get her to do a bit of an intro and then dive into our live demo. Thanks, Sadia.
Thanks, hello, everyone. My name is Sadia, and I'm an implementation consultant at Xero based in Melbourne. I do come from practice where I was previously an accountant and have also dabbled in a bit of audit. but over the last year and a half, I've been working with the the partner consulting and implementation consultants at Xero, and our team works with practices that are looking to migrate their practice management solution to XPM, as well as reviewing those already utilizing XPM to help increase efficiency and streamline your workflow. I might just quickly get started with sharing my screen. If I could just get, Bradley, if I could just get you to stop sharing your screen so I could definitely take over this meeting.
There you go.
Awesome. Now you're all good, all good. All right, beautiful. Just making sure everyone can see I've got XPM on my screen up here. All right, now whether you have utilized, thanks, Em. Now, whether you have been utilizing Xero Practice Manager for your practice, or you're new and exploring the potential of utilizing XPM as your practice management software, this demonstration will be helpful, exploring both our best practice model as well as in tips and tricks for a typical job workflow. Now, Xero Practice Manager, or XPM, is a workflow management tool for accounting and bookkeeping firms. XPM also directly integrates with Xero to increase efficiency by reducing time spent on administrative processes such as invoicing your clients. Now, as you can see, I have XPM open in Google Chrome, and this is easily accessible for staff, whether they're from the office, whether they're at the office or working from home, like many of us may be today. Now, upon logging in to Xero Practice Manager, each staff member is greeted with a dashboard, giving them insight into their time summary for the week, which really helps them stay focused on their overall capacity and productivity. Now, quick high-level overview. My gray bars are my expected productivity, which are set at 7.5 hours every day. The yellow is capacity reducing time. So that's because I took a sneaky little annual leave on Monday. The red is non-billable, so that's where I've come into work and spent the first 2 hours of this morning in an internal meeting. And the green is billable time. So that's where I've gone in and work on my compliance jobs. And all of these and the green bars are actually translated into the productivity wheel on the right-hand side. So the outer circle of the productivity wheel shows me my expected productivity, and that has been set by my manager at 75%. The inner circle shows me my actual productivity, and this is based on the green bars on my time summary graph. And just below this, we have a 2-week snapshot of important dates. So as I've mentioned, really easy for your staff members to just log in, look at how they're doing capacity and productivity wise, and just jump into the tasks that are that have a tight deadline that they can see on their 2-week snapshot. Awesome. Now I'm going to head into the Clients tab. So this is where all of your clients will be sitting, and the biggest tip I want to give you here is that firstly, you've got a filter function. What this means is you can quickly navigate and access a subset of clients that is relevant for yourself. So instead of going through all of your clients, you can just quickly jump into what's important for you. Now, of course, we've got our clients, groups, and contacts. We do have a search function where you can look up your clients. However, I do want to point out the global search. And the reason I love the global search is because you have access to this regardless of which tab you're in. And this not only gives you your client's name, but you can also jump into important credentials, such as your client's details. So for today, I'm going to be jumping into my client, Reno Rumblers. As you can see, when I search him, I've got their invoices as well as their contacts pulling up. So now that I've jumped into the client, you'll notice that the very first thing is we can see all of the important credentials for this specific client. So we've got any invoices that are awaiting payment, any that are overdue, and of course, any WIP that we haven't billed out yet. We can also quickly navigate into any of the other data sets that may be existing in XPM for this client. And just below this, just a quick heads up, as you can see, we've got the client details in here. We've got the relevant tax and company information, contact details. We've also set up contacts, groups, and relationships. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, we've also got custom fields. Now, one thing I did want to point out is if your client list is not in XPM yet, in Xero Practice Manager yet, you can definitely reach out to your account manager and we can help you bring across all of this data into your Xero Practice Manager. Now, the first thing, one other thing I did want to point out in my client record is the leads tab. Now, within Xero Practice Manager, you have the ability to keep track of potential new clients using the lead module within XPM. Now, I know back in practice, I used to keep track of all my potential new clients on little post-it notes around all over my desk. But with Xero Practice Manager, that really brings in the efficiency. And when you do set them up, potential new clients as leads, you can use a template, and this brings forth activities that populate your 2-week snapshot on your dashboard. All right. Now, I hope whether you guys are utilizing XPM or you're new to XPM, what I'm really excited to share with you today is a brand new jobs dashboard that is coming very soon. So I hope you've all glued yourselves to your seats in case the excitement you're just jumping out. But if I head in there, everyone, I'd like to welcome you to Xero Practice Manager's new jobs dashboard. Now, just like the previous one, you'd have a list of all your jobs and you have the ability to change the job states. However, with this new dashboard that is coming soon, you do have the ability to add additional filter functions so that you're not once again scrolling through all of your jobs. You can just quickly set up as many filters as you want and navigate to a subset of those jobs that are specific for you. You also have the ability to go in and change the priority, and you can also sort out your client list by client, name, priority, and job states, and everything else as well. Awesome. I hope everyone's really excited about this new dashboard that's coming very soon. And now that I've covered the basic functionalities within Xero Practice Manager, I did want to take you over a workflow. So once again, using the global search function, I'm going to jump into my client, JP Legacy Trust. There you go. So I'm going to jump into my client and we are going to be following our best practice model to send a quote and complete the job and invoice it out as well. All right, so I've jumped into my client, JP Legacy Trust. I'm going to go ahead and create a new quote. And when you go in to create that, one thing you'll notice is you have the ability to use templates. Now, when you do get started with XPM, if you're not currently utilizing it, when you do turn on XPM, you do get a couple of default templates that Xero provides, and you can also customize these to suit your practice needs. And if you are using XPM, you know the efficiency it brings. So for this, for JP Legacy Trust, I'm going to be using an annual tax compliance. I'm going to give myself a few extra days. Let's say we're going to do a full month, and I can go ahead and click next. Now, within the quote, before we can go and approve the quote, you do have the ability to change from a calculated to a fixed pricing, where you can go in and manipulate the total as you see here. But I'm really happy with the calculated pricing. And if I scroll below, you'll notice we've got the tasks popping through. Now, these tasks are your scoping items. And as I hover over them, you'll notice that there's a description in here. This description forms your quote. It's going to form the job when the quote is accepted, and it's also going to be it's going to be the billing paragraph in your invoice when you send it out to your client as well, saving you heaps of time, bringing in efficiency, where, as we've mentioned, you're reducing administrative tasks by going in and typing in all of those descriptions. And just letting you know, all of these tasks are coming from the template that I've used, and once again, highly customizable to suit your practice needs. Now, for JP Legacy Trust, I'm happy with all of these except there's only one beneficiary, so I'll just remove the second tax return prep, and I can go ahead and issue and print. Now, when you do issue and print, you do have the ability to set set up use a template. Now, if you are using system default, you can of course choose what you want to display on the quote. Additionally, you can upload customized templates into your Xero Practice Manager as well. So as you can see, for my practice token accounting, we've actually got a 50% upfront deposit template that we utilize, and I can go ahead and click print. We'll just give my internet a few seconds. All right, so as you can see, the proposal has gone through. This is what it looks like. It's pulling in my practice logo, which I must say looks beautiful. And as you can see, it's pulling through all those billing paragraphs as well as the amounts. Now I can go ahead and download this and send it out to my client. All right, guys, now that we've looked at how you can send out a quote, let's just say my client JP Legacy Trust has confirmed they're happy to go ahead with this quote. So what I can do is I can jump into my quotes manager, and this is where you'll have the ability to view all of the quotes that are currently in your XPM. As you can see, we currently only have one. I can jump into it and I can accept it. Yep. Perfect. And I can go ahead and click accept, and this is automatically going to create that job for me. Of course, a couple of things we can change here. I can go in and add a budget. I can change the state. So we are going to be working on this today, so I will leave it in progress. You also have the ability to change category. So if you're really helpful, if you're currently keeping track of different revenue streams, and this actually connects links to your practice organization. Once again, bringing in that efficiency so you can do better reporting for your practice. Once again, I'm going to give myself 1 month. So let's go ahead and do 11th of November and assign it. And as you can see, I've already been assigned to the job. Awesome. I can go ahead and click save. This is going to create that job for me. And if I scroll below, you'll notice that all of those tasks have pulled through. And if I just hover over it, it's actually brought through those billing paragraphs as well, which is going to be part of my invoice. Now, one other final thing I did want to point out before doing a bit of a time jump, as they do in TV shows these days, is that you can always go in and add milestones. Now, these milestones are internal checklist items that when you add, they will populate your dashboard in the 2-week snapshot. So once again, really keeping your staff members, you can go in and add those milestones, really keeping your staff members on their toes, going like, yep, this is a task I have to complete today. It's pulling through in my 2-week snapshot. Perfect. All right, guys, now that we've looked at a couple of functionalities, we've looked at the dashboard, clients, and of course, the amazing brand new jobs dashboard. We've gone into a client, we've sent them a quote, and the quote has been accepted. And that automatically has created a job for me within my practice manager. Now, let's do a bit of a time jump and say we have gone in and completed a lot of this. We've put in a lot of the work. We've completed the job. It's time to put in those time summaries, well, the timesheets. Now, within Xero Practice Manager, you can add timesheets from within the dashboard page, but I wanted to show you from within the job and, of course, our famous quick timer. So firstly, you can add timesheets from within the job under the timesheet tab. I just have to go in, and now you're just going to go and watch me putting in all of those timesheets. Yep. I've gone in and done a lot of the compliance work, definitely charging my client, and I can go ahead and click save. As you can see, the timesheet has pulled through. Now, the other function I wanted to show you that a lot of our partners absolutely love is a quick timer. That's on the top right-hand corner, and this is basically a start and stop time watch for your practice. Now, I can always go in and let's say, for example, if I'm putting in the timesheets at the end of the day, I can simply go, yep, I'm going to put in 2 hours, and this is for the job that we have started today. Yep, and this is going to be a client meeting, definitely billable, and I can go ahead and click save. Now, for the main function of the quick timer is that you can also start and stop a time watch. Once again, going to put in the job that we're working on. This is going to be, let's say we've gone in, going to be a bit of advisory. Oh, I've selected the wrong one. There you go. Annual tax compliance for JP Legacy Trust. And I can go in and put this as ad hoc support and advice, absolutely billable. And what happens is you can come into XPM, turn on that stopwatch, go ahead with completing the compliance work, come back, click stop, and it's automatically going to put in that timesheet against that job as well. So if I click stop and save, perfect. Now coming back into the job, if I head into the financial tab, and if I scroll, you'll notice that all the timesheets that we've put through have popped up in here. So we've put in 5 hours against the annual financial statements, got 2 hours of client meeting, and we used 31 seconds of the timer for ad hoc support and advice. Now, one other thing I did want to mention before I invoiced out is that this is actually different to other systems because staff members cannot add time to a client. We need a job and a task to post time. Because we are assigning time to a task within a job, we can keep our typing for a narration to a minimum. As you can see, all of these data automatically pulls through. All right, so just confirming, we've done a bit of a time jump. Sadia's gone in, put in heaps of work. She's put in her timesheets as well, and now we are ready to send out the invoice to our client. I'm going to go ahead and click New Final Invoice. If you have sent a quote, which we have, you can choose to honor the quote. I'm actually going to go ahead and use my actual time and costs, and I can go ahead and move forward. Now, under the pricing mode, as you can see, we once again have the ability, we can choose to change from calculated to fixed, and this will allow us to go in and manipulate the data as well. Now, I know we only collected 31 seconds. I might just up my price a little. And as you can see, it automatically calculates my write-ons and write-offs. And I can go ahead and click approve. And this approve is automatically going to push that invoice from Xero Practice Manager into my practice's Xero Blue organization. Now, I quickly wanted to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to jump into my practice's Xero Blue organization and head into business and invoices. And as you can see, the invoice has automatically popped up here. Now, the reason we do push the invoice into Xero Blue is firstly, we want to be utilizing e-invoicing. We want to utilize invoice reminders. And of course, we want to be utilizing payment gateway. And a lot of our partners have told us that once, when we do send out, when we do have payment gateway enabled, they get paid up to 14 days faster. And who doesn't want that for their cash flow? All right, guys, we've quickly looked at a job workflow. Now, before I wrap this up, one final thing I did want to point out as well is that once you're utilizing XPM, you do have access to heaps of reports that you can get a lot more reporting out of. So for example, you can look at your recoverability, profitability, write-ons, write-offs, etc. All right, so that is the end of my XPM demo. I'm just going to go ahead and pass it back to Bradley to talk about the integrations with BGL.
Oh, thanks, Sadi. That was great. Really appreciate that. So I'll just share my screen back again now. So hopefully everyone can see my screen again. So Look, that was wonderful. Thanks for that. What we'll do now, as mentioned before, we'll now go into showing the integration. So that's XPM. We'll show you how we can set up the integration and all the ins and outs of that. So just as a little bit of background before I jump straight into the product itself, I guess there's a bit of a question, well, why have the integration now? Some people might say that the answer is obvious, but look, it's a legitimate question to have. Why we built this? We've actually built one a few years ago now. We've actually upgraded it, so I'll cover the differences between that as well. So, most practices these days have many different software solutions, and in those different software solutions, for example, you might have CAS 360, Simple Fund 360, Simple Invest 360, XPM. You may have other software solutions, and the same clients and contacts will be across all of those solutions. So, in the past, you'd have to update an address or update an email address or name or whatever it might be in one solution. Then you have to go and repeat yourself 4 or 5 times. So first of all, that takes time. And second of all, that there's a potential for error or, maybe forget to do one particular solution. So that's why we built our practice management version 1, which, a lot of firms use and use quite well. But we did have a lot of feedback from that in the early days, talking about, there's a bit of lack of transparency. You can't see, there's no real dedicated screen to see what's going on or what contacts and clients are linked and syncing in what way. And also there's some people, spoke about duplication in some circumstances. So that's what we've, I guess, looked to improve. We've built a new version. We've listened to that feedback, built a new version based on the same concept of syncing client and contact data, but I guess new, improved, more transparency and more control. So look, that's what I'll show you now. So I guess the demo I'm about to provide, I'll show you how to turn on the integration. I'll show navigating our new screen. That's what I'm talking about when I say transparency. We have a new client and contact list screen, and also we can see the integration in action. So what I'll do, I'll just bring up the software. So first I'll show you how to find the integration. So if you're in Simple Fund or Simple Invest 360 or CAS 360, up the top right-hand side, there's an app switcher, and then you click on integration. So it's pretty straightforward, but all our products have that same app switcher. So that's how you find our integrations page. Let's wait for that to load. And then under the practice management settings, you'll now see this is a new, we've revamped this menu a little bit. We have practice management settings. So this is the new practice management version 2 settings. You'll see you have all of the BGL product suite plus Xero Practice Manager. So turning on is very simple. As long as you're an admin to those products, you can simply, with the BGL products, it's just a matter of clicking connect because you're already logged in. So there's no authenticating needing to be done. Now, if you want to connect Xero as well, which we do in this case, we click on connect to Xero. Now that'll pop up with a new screen. And if I'm logged in, doesn't look like I am logged in. Just quickly log in. So if you are logged in already, it'll skip this step, but if you need to log in, you simply log in. And then a message pops up and say, do you want to grant access, BGL access to XPM? And you say allow access. And then we'll revert back to BGL, to the integration page. And now you'll see that we have connected. So it's that simple. As long as you've logged in and you allow access, we're right now to start. So just a few things to note before we get into it and actually turn on the integration. This is just the preliminary step. You'll see down the bottom here under the Xero Practice Manager card, there's actually 2 toggles. And these toggles are quite important. They're very handy features we've added, I guess, as some of the improvements we've got with this new integration. So the first toggle, Xero Practice Manager automatically updates BGL. So if you have that toggle on and you make a change in Xero, it will automatically flow through to BGL, whether it's CAS, Simple Fund, Simple Invest 360. So you have an option where that's on or off. And the second toggle, BGL automatically updates XPM. So the same thing, but in reverse. So you have full control and full power over how you want this integration to work. You might not want it updating both directions. You may have a certain workflow that has to come from Xero first, for example, and then updates BGL. Or you might be happy to, have it 2-way sync and have both of them turned on. So if someone makes a change in Xero, it will reflect in BGL and vice versa. If someone updates something in CAS, let's say, it'll push out to Simple Fund and Simple Invest, but it also push back to XPM as well. So you have those toggles there and you can turn them on or off anytime. So it's something you can sort of work with if you want to sort of fine tune your workflow and fine tune your processes. So now, once you're happy with that, I guess now officially turn it on, there's a start initial synchronization button up the top right-hand corner. So I'll click that. Now it's going to pop up with a message to say, because in XPM you can have custom business structures. So we've mapped the default business structures to, for example, individual to individual or SMSF. We've mapped them to our BGL software, but if you've created any custom structures, we allow you to map them as well. So because we might not know what they are exactly. So I'll say, yes, we'll do some mapping. It brings up the default ones, which we've mapped automatically for you. Down the bottom, I've created an SMSF group 2 in XPM. So at the moment, by default, we're going to ignore that. So any clients under SMSF group 2 will be ignored. But if you want to map that, in this case, we do want to map that to SMSF, you simply select SMSF, and that's all you have to do. And then once you're happy with the mappings, as I said, the default ones you don't need to change. It's only custom ones down the bottom you'll update. And then you click Save and Start Initial Sync. So what happens now is it's taken me through to the client and contact list. Now, this process of downloading, I guess, the client and contact data, and we put it together, we run a matching algorithm, and we try to, I guess, set up the sync process. It can take anywhere between 10 minutes to maybe a few hours, depending on how many clients and contacts you have. So I actually have one I prepared earlier, obviously, so we're not going to wait hours for this to happen. But just one thing quickly before I jump into the other account I have, when that synchronization is finished and ready for you to log in and have a look at that list, it'll send an email to whichever email you've logged in as. You can also add other emails here before, when you're doing the setup process, if you want someone else to be notified when that sync is complete. So what I'll do now, I'll just jump in to one I prepared earlier. So this is the client and contact list. And as I said, this is probably the biggest difference between PM1 and PM2 for us, because now we can see everything. We can see what's in front of us. We can see, all the clients and all the contacts from all the products we've integrated with. So what I'll do is a quick overview of the screen and all the ins and outs, and then we'll go through pretending like we've just set this up from scratch and we want to go through and review our data. So we'll do both of those things. So you can see the list here, business structure. So it tells you, the individual company, SMSF, what they might be, when the last modified. It has a link status. So for example, if they're linked with other products, or if there's a review data needs to be, you need to review the data. It just gives you that status, which is quite important. And I think a key thing in the furthest column to the right, we have the product column. So you can see, okay, so AB Smith is in CAS, but not in any other product, or Trusted Company 1 is in CAS, Simple Fund, and Xero. So very handy here, and direct link to that product as well if you want to view that particular entity. So I'll just quickly go through the statuses on the left-hand side, and then we'll go through a bit more detail after that. So as I said, you can filter by any of the statuses. So for example, I might want to see what's linked and what's already syncing, or I might want to see what's under review data. So I want to go through anything I need to review and make changes to or update, depending on what the differences are. Also, we have product filters. So I might want to see, okay, what's not in XPM. So I click on not in XPM. I say, okay, these particular entities, clients and contacts are in BGL, but they're not in XPM. So I can actually tick them and move them across and add to Xero, for example. And I'll just scroll down a little bit further. We have the last few filters here. So you can filter by business structure as well. So I want to look at all my individuals or all my SMSFs, and also by the modified date. So I can filter by modified date, maybe anything that's changed in the last 7 days. I just want to look at that. Now, in this case, that's everything because I've only set this up recently. So, but once you get into using this, that'll be quite a handy filter. Okay, so what I'll do now, we'll go through let's pretend we've just received the email saying, okay, synchronization is complete. Now, what do we do? So I think you'd go through the filters with the statuses, and you'd have a look to see, okay, what do we need to do to get this up and running? So the link is fine. These are all linked. I'll give you an example of, okay, Trusted Company 1, just to show you why it's linked and what it looks like. So this is the detailed view of this particular entity. So you can see the names are all the same, all matched, the physical address all the same, business number, company number. So everything's the same. We've identified that and we've linked it for you, and this will now sync. So I'll give you a syncing example a bit later on, but this is fine. And down the bottom, it also shows you any relationships that are within this company. So we have a list of directors, list of shareholders. I can actually click through to these records as well. So for example, Joe Harry Blogs, I click through to Joe, and it shows me Joe's details as well, which happens to be a review data, which I'll cover next. So I'll go back to And just a note on the relationships. At the moment, we're displaying the relationships, but we're not actually pushing through relationships. So if you create a new company in CAS with shareholders and directors, you can push through the company, you can push through the contacts, the shareholders and directors, but we won't push through that join or that relationship yet, but we are looking to do that pretty soon as an improvement. So just keep that in mind. That's coming soon. So back to our client list. So as I said, we've just turned this on. So what we want to do is we see that, okay, there's 3 records in review data. So we want to have a look at that and say, well, why is it review data? So let's click on Joe Harry Blogs. Now we can see, okay, name's the same, date of birth's the same, email's the same, but you can see here on the right-hand panel, there's a discrepancy in the address. So it could just be a case of, you know, as I mentioned before, when you're updating different software solutions, maybe someone's updated the address at some stage, but has forgotten to update Xero in this case, or vice versa. Maybe they've updated XPM, but haven't updated BGL. So in this case, and this is the beauty of the screen, we show you those differences, we highlight those differences you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. There's no middle point to do this, but now we have that. So now we can say, all right, well, what's the correct address? You'll have to obviously work out what the correct address is. And then in our screen, it's as simple as just selecting which one's the correct address. So in this case, let's say XPM, let's say CAS is correct. It matches with ASIC. There's no problems there. So we'll say, yep, we'll use the CAS address. You select that. And then up the top it says, are you sure you want to update? And we say, yes, that's fine. And then we go. So, oh, it didn't push through. Might just refresh that.
Really?
It's just a bit of a delay sometimes pushing through to Xero, but I'll just save that again. There we go. Saved again. So that pushes through to Xero. So CAS and SimpleInvest stay the same, but we've pushed through that address update through to Xero, and that's updated now. And you can see everything's matched. And you'll also notice the top left-hand corner, this used to say review data. Now it says linked. So now we've fixed the discrepancy that was there. We now can expect this record to sync and link in the future. So if we make a change in Xero, it'll push back to BGL or vice versa if we have both those toggles on that I mentioned before. Okay, so I'll go back to the client list. Just refresh the page. So we had a couple more review data I want to go through. So let's click on Joanna Blogs. Okay, so this is very similar. Everything's the same. It's just for some reason SimpleInvest doesn't have an email address. So once again, very simple and quick. I just say, all right, well, the Xero and CAS both have the same email address. I'll just use the Xero one, for example, and save that. And now it's all linked. So it's just a way of actually cleaning up your data and then linking the contacts and the different products. So now we see everything is matched. It's linked up the top. So now CAS, Simple Fund or SimpleInvest and Xero all have the same details and we're right to go. So I'll move on to the next one. The last one I need to review. And same thing, actually this time they all have an email address, or just a little letter was dropped off in SimpleInvest. We dropped the .au or just .a. So once again, a simple fix. Just a thing before I fix it, I'll just show you one thing in terms of the smarts we have in place for how we match and the algorithms we use. You can see the address is considered matched here for Sammy, Sam, Samuel. But if you look closely in the BGL products, street is spelled with the full word street, but in Xero it's ST, for example. Now each software solution you use may have different defaults it uses. Sometimes you can override them, but there will be those discrepancies. Now in reality, it's the exact same address. So we've put some smarts in place to actually understand that and say, well, we're not going to flag this as being different because it actually is the same address. Now, I guess from a CAS user point of view, you'd know that, you know, if this is a shareholder or director, the address is very important, exactly what it matches with at ASIC's end. So obviously we don't want to go change that for no reason, but we'll consider this matched and we won't override the specifics of this address unless the entire address changes to something else. Then we'll make the change and you lodge the forms, but I'll take you through that in a minute. So for this record, I'll also just say, okay, let's use the Xero email address just to fix that up. And now you see, even though street is still ST versus the full word street, everything's matched and the client is linked. Okay, so back to the contact list. So we've cleared up all our review data records. So now that's good. We're happy with that. The last two I'm going to take you through review duplicate and suggested match. Now I might do suggested match first because it's a little bit more similar to review data. So I guess it's the same concept as review data, except it's maybe not as solid from our point of view. With review data, we're pretty sure we think these are the same contacts or the same clients. Please review the differences. Whereas with suggest and match, we're not as confident, but we're just suggesting, hey, take a look at this and see what you want to do with it. So we have a trust here, the second May trust. Now, in this case, we've suggested this because the name is identical. So this is actually in CAS and Simple Fund or Simple Invest. The same trust, well, it's a trust. So it's exactly the same. So what, I guess the address is different for starters, and also you'll notice the business number is different. So in this case, it's a question of, well, is it the same? I mean, if you're confident it is the same and just maybe some details have been missed, then it's just a case of what we've done before. You can update these. So let's say the CAS details are actually correct. I can say you can individually select an update. So, well, for example, maybe the Simple Invest is correct for the address. So you can select that one. And then you can also select the CAS one because it has the business number, but Simple Invest doesn't. That's another option. So, or if everything in CAS is actually correct, you can just select up the top and say, use the CAS details and save that. So now the suggested match becomes a linked record because you've confirmed and updated where necessary. Okay, the last one I'll go through just in terms of cleaning up data. We have a review duplicate. Now, this is a little bit more of a complicated one, and you'll probably see it, or it can come up in any product, but in particular CAS, we see it's quite common. So in CAS, I'll show, so I'll go into Jenny Double here, conveniently named. So in CAS, we have two Jenny Double records, two contacts that are Jenny Double. And in Xero, we have the one record. So you can see up here the tab on the CAS tab, I can tab through 1 and 2. Now, I'll open up these records in CAS just to quickly show you. That's record 1 and then record 2. So a very common scenario that we see, you may have the same person, but they've had two records, and that could be because they might be a director of two different companies, and maybe the place of birth registered with ASIC may be different for whatever reason, and you need to keep them as separate records because if you can't merge them, because then you'll have issues when lodging forms. So I can see here Jenny Double number 1 has place of birth as Clayton, whereas Jenny Double number 2 has a place of birth as Mulgrave. So this is the scenario I was just mentioning then. So if I go back to our integrations page, what the desired outcome is, we want to keep both those records in CAS, but we want to sync it still. So if a change happens in Xero, for example, just say Jenny changes her email address or changes her actual address where she lives, that'll be updated for both the CAS records, and all the companies that need to be prepared forms for will have forms prepared. So all we have to do here is pick the record in CAS. So you can see me scrolling between the two records up the top, pick the record that we sort of want to go with in terms of the differences that we want to keep. So the only difference we can see on screen here is that one has an email address and one doesn't. That's the only difference. Just a point I should make is the place of birth is critical in CAS, but we don't actually store that in the screen here. So we're not going to be changing that. We're not going to be overriding that. We're going to keep that the same. So Mulgrave and Clayton will remain different in CAS. Only what you see on screen here will be updated. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to click Make Primary and Sync, and that'll simply copy the email address from this record that I've got on screen to the other record, the first record, just so that they match, the primary details match the same, and then it'll all sync. So I'll just click that button now. I'll update duplicates. Now what you have is, we still have the two records. If I click through, there's 1 and 2, but what we see on screen is the same. In CAS, they'll still have the different places of birth. They'll still be separate records, but now it's all syncing. You can see linked up the top. So this is quite a handy feature, because now if you go in Xero and update Jenny's address to whatever the new one might be, it'll actually push through to CAS, and both records will be updated. I'll show you a bit of an update example in a minute, but that's just so you're aware of that. The other options here, if for some reason that they actually shouldn't be linked, they're actually not a duplicate, it's just two people with the same name and or whatever it might be, you can actually unlink. There's an option to unlink here as well. So keep that in mind. You don't have to go through this process. If you think they should be separate, you don't want to do this, you can unlink. You could also leave it in the status it was initially, ideally not, but that is an option as well. Or you can go through, as I said, you can actually go to the contact in CAS, and maybe it's just a case of fixing something up in CAS, removing a record depending on the circumstances. And just so if you're not aware, CAS has a contact find matches option as well. So if they actually need to be merged, you can actually do that in CAS. So once again, though, obviously if they're a director of companies and they have different places of birth, you need to keep them separate, but these are your options you have. So much more powerful way of doing things now that you have the option to link them and sync them all together and keep the two records in CAS. Okay, I'll go back to our screen. So what I'll quickly do now, well, let's just do a run through of an example of actually making a change and seeing how it syncs. So now we've cleaned everything up, we've reviewed our data, we've fixed up our duplicates, we're good to go now. So everything's looking pretty good. All that's left is, I guess, we have a few records not linked, so they're not in any other product. Now, that could be a legitimate scenario where you have some, you might have certain clients in Xero that you don't actually need or want in BGL, so you can leave that, that's fine. But just for argument's sake, I might quickly just show you, it is quite easy to add to other products if you need to. So let's say, for example, there's a record here that's not in CAS. The May Trust isn't in CAS. I can simply click the option there and add to CAS. And that record will get added to CAS. You can see now the CAS icon's there. So it's very easy to add. If something's missing from a product, it's very easy to add. You can also do multiple. So if I go to Xero, not in XPM, for example, there's a lot of records in BGL that aren't in XPM for whatever reason. I can actually tick multiple and add them. So I want to add to Xero. Slowly, I didn't want to do all of them because it can take a few seconds, but there you can see that they're added to Xero now. So it's very easy to do that. So that's, I guess, your last step would be just if there's anything that isn't added that needs to be added. But I think in most cases that should be fine already. It's probably going forward that you'll do this on a day-to-day basis. If you add a client to Xero, for example, you can come through here and then push it through to CAS or push it through to Simple Fund. Okay, so as I said, let's do a bit of a live demo of how the sync works. So we'll pick Joe Harry Blogs. So I'll go into Xero. Hopefully I'm still logged in. So let's say Joe contacts us and say he's changed his address. So in Xero, I'll just update the address to something else. Okay, so we'll update that. Now, this will save. I'll go back to our integrations page. Now, what will happen, there's two things I'll mention here before showing how it works. Every 2 hours, we get an update from Xero. So if you want this to run sort of in the background automatically, you would just let it go and it will come through automatically within 2 hours. It could be sooner depending on when that sort of time stamp is. And then it'll update here automatically and push those changes through to CAS as a notification. Obviously, for today's demo purposes, I'm not going to wait potentially for 2 hours. So I'll actually, and this is something you can do in real life as well. If you want to push something through more quickly, you've made the changes in Xero, you simply come here and click refresh. So you can see the address is still the old address. But if I click refresh here against the Xero record, it brings through the new address straight away. So if there's something you want to urgently push through, you can do that. But if you're happy to wait for it to automatically update in its time, you can just wait. And it's the same workflow once that happens, but just be mindful of that. There's two ways of getting there. So because I've done this manually, I have to then also manually confirm, yes, I want this. If it was done automatically, I wouldn't have to do this next step here. But okay, so I know I've made the change in Xero. I'll use the Xero address. I'll click on use Xero address and click save. Now, a thing to note here, you see that Simple Invest or Simple Fund is updated. CAS hasn't yet. Now you can see a note up the top. I'll just go into CAS and show you what's happened. And this is, the desired workflow, I suppose, because in this case, Joe Harry Blogs is maybe a shareholder of one or more companies. So we've got the message here. So address for Joe Harry Blogs has been updated from Xero Practice Manager. We know the workflow where it came from, and you can see in the notifications, you have a notification. So from here, you have the option to prepare forms, which is what you would do. Click on prepare forms. And where it saves time is you don't have to type out the address or do it. It just automatically is there for you. We pre-fill the address, we pre-fill the date, and you simply click proceed. And this is normal CAS workflow now. So we've shown the notification, we've shown the message is there, and then we click proceed. And then CAS will do its normal checks through to the multi-changes screen. So Joe is connected or related to two different companies. And then you go through the normal workflow of preparing the forms. So let's say, for example, I'll quickly do that now just to get it through to show you. Select an agent. Okay, so I'll download these forms. So let's say I was preparing lodging these forms to ASIC. One's done. I'll quickly do the other one, prepare forms, just because I want to show the end workflow as it loops back into our integrations page. Okay, so I'll download that, prepare forms. So now that all the companies that Joe is related to has been cleaned off and finalized. If I look back to our integrations page, now this could take up to 30, because it's BGL product, it's a bit quicker than the 2 hours. We get a notification maybe within 30 seconds. I'll just refresh to see if it has come through. If it hasn't, I'll just force it through so we don't have to sit and wait. So if you want to get it through straight away, you don't want to wait a minute or 30 seconds, just click refresh. And there we have it. The updates come through. So this won't update in our integrations page until those forms are prepared. And that's the correct workflow, because really we don't want the address updated in CAS until it's, that's the normal process. So that's how we handle it. Okay. Go back to our client list. Just so you're aware, I'm showing you from XPM to BGL, that example then, but it's exactly the same. If I was, let's look at Sammy Samuel. If I was in, for example, Simple Fund or Simple Invest and I made a change, it would also flow through to CAS and Xero as well. So the same workflow, it doesn't matter where you're doing it from. If you've got both those toggles turned on, I'll just go back to the toggles because it's probably worth mentioning that now, because I mentioned it early on, but it might make more sense now what I was talking about. So these toggles here, I have them both turned on. So the example I just did then with Joe Harry Blogs, where I made a change in Xero, that would push through automatically because that toggle is on. It would push through automatically to BGL. I manually refresh it just for the sake of time, but it would push through within 2 hours to BGL, and vice versa. If I made a change in CAS or Simple Fund or Simple Invest 360, with this second toggle on, it will push through automatically to XPM. So that's just tying that back into what I mentioned earlier. Okay. Probably covers most of the screen and how it works. There's all little other bits and pieces you'll sort of find out as you go along, and we're adding a lot of improvements as well. So yeah, but I think that covers most of the demo. So what we might do now, I know there's quite a few questions coming through that the team's busy answering. So we might just run one more quick poll. If you have any questions about what I've just displayed, demonstrated, please ask them and we'll get around to answering them. But just while we're doing that, I'll just run one more poll. So basically, after today's session of deep dive into XPM and also the new integrations, if you would like to be reached out to by either BGL or Xero or both, I'll just launch this poll now. Just let us know, because yeah, you might have some questions or you might want to turn it on. So please let us know, and we'll talk to you about that. Just so you're aware, it's something I haven't mentioned. I mentioned Practice Management version 1 before, so we're still making some improvements to Practice Management version 2 to make the transition from Practice Management version 1 firms a smoother transition. So keep that in mind. But if you've never turned on any Practice Management with BGL before, feel free to follow the steps I just showed you before, either from Simple Funds or CAS, and you can turn that on. There's no harm, because all it does is brings it into this screen, and you can view it. You can control what's happening. You can turn the toggles off if you want. So you have full control over everything. So if you've never used Practice Management before, I'd recommend having a go. If you are on version 1, it's probably better to reach out to the BGL team, integrations@bglcorp.com.au, or reach out to your account manager, and we'll have a bit of a discussion about that. But as I said, very soon we'll have a few more little tweaks to enable that transition to be a bit smoother, and then everyone can move across very soon, I think. So, but yeah, reach out to us if you want to discuss that further. So I think that wraps up the integration demo anyway. So I think what we'll do then is we'll be hanging around for a little while just answering questions in the Q&A, but I just want to say a big thank you to Emily and Sadia for joining me today. It was great to have you both here.
Thanks, Brad. It was great. Thank you for having us, and thanks for all attending.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Sadia. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, and thanks everyone for attending today. I hope you've taken something away from it. As I said, and we'll reach out to you if you filled in that poll. We'll reach out to you if you want to hear from BGL or Xero or both. But it'll be great to see people start using this. There's already quite a few people jumped on, which is great. As I said, we're building it out even further. So there's a lot of exciting things to come from both Xero and BGL. So yeah, thanks again, everyone. We'll hang around for a little bit, just answering the questions in the Q&A. But other than that, I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and yeah, we'll speak to you all soon.